Okay, I'm doing a bit of recycling, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn these jars into one of these, and this is, well, a propagation station. So we do a lot of gardening and we cultivate our own plants and propagate our own plants. And one of the ways you can do that is by putting your cuttings in jars of water, and then they'll root that way. So I've made a little rack out of a piece of pallet, so the wood is completely free. These jars are old spice jars, and they just sit in there like that, and there we have it. And then you can put water in, put your plants in, and it's an easy thing to make. As I said, I've made it out of pallet, so here's the bits of pallet wood that I've been using, and I've picked this because it's got quite a nice colour to it. But to be honest with you, any bit of pallet will do. And what I've got here is the start of another one. So again, I've gone for 3, so it'll have 3 jars in it. There, and these are just normal spice jars bought from a supermarket. I'll take the labels and that off them, obviously. So I'm at the stage now where I can sort of stick it all together. So I've pre-cut everything for the actual rack itself. It's a fairly easy thing to make. It's literally just a rectangle frame with some holes in it, and I'm not going to screw this together. I'm going to use little dowels which I'll glue in, and I'm just going to super glue it together, as daft as that sounds. But yeah, so there's the rack. So we've got roughly, say, a centimetre, roughly 10mm between each jar, and a good gap either side of the jars. Obviously it doesn't sit together very nicely at the moment because it needs putting together, but that allows you as well, so, and this way up, if I can do it, it gives you enough of the jar above here so that you can slide it out if you need to. So I'm going to go start putting this together in a second. To make the holes for the jar, I've put a centre line down the piece of wood, and then using a Forstner bit, I've just drilled that out, and I went through the Forstner bits that I have, and found one that will fit these jars, which are roughly 40mm across on the bottom, and this one is a 44mm Forstner bit, so it's plenty big enough. And yeah, then I've put 3 holes in so the jars can sit in nicely, and that's it really. It's a simple thing to make. I've used hand tools pretty much all the way through this, so a little mitre saw to cut the thing. Once it's all put together, I'll give it a sand and round the edges off, and then I'll go over it with some oil and make it look nice. But the only things really to sort of consider are how long you make these bits, the side bits. So if you make them too long, obviously your jars will sit too far into the hole and you won't be able to get them out, and obviously if you go too short then you'll have too much, but you might want that. So all I've done is I've measured from the base of the jar to the neck there, and I've made my little side bits that high, and that's it. So like I said, it's easy to make, can be made in a couple of minutes. I've all pre-cut all this, so now I'm going to stick it all together. I am going to use some little clamps just to make my life a bit easier. So I'll start by sticking the top part on, and as I said, I'm just using super glue for this, and all I'm going to do is run some super glue, make sure I've got it. I have marked it, which side goes where and which way up. So I'm just going to run some of the super glue along the top here and some in the holes, and then taking the clamp, I'm just going to clamp it together, and the glue will set quickly. That's another reason for using super glue. Start to go off already, so just get it as flush as you can, clamp it up, And then in the hole, again, I'll just put another bit of glue. And I will get one of my little dowels and just tap them in. There's one in. Two in. So that's that side. Same again for this side. So I'll take the glue, run it across this edge, some in the hole. For the dowel. And there we go. Again, pop a clamp on once you've got it where it needs to be. That's about right. And a bit more glue in the hole. And tap the dowel in. There's that one. I'll just move this clamp round a bit. By now the glue should have set pretty much anyway, so this should be alright. Taking the clamps off. Again. Have a little bit of a tap. And there we go. I've got a bit of glue spilled there, but you can wipe that off with a bit of tissue. And this is all going to get sanded anyway, so I will go over it and tidy it up. Obviously the pegs will need to be cut back. Okay. So I'll just let that dry for a few minutes and then I'll do the other end and then we'll sand it all up, give it an oil. And that's about it really. Okay, I'll just get on and do the bottom part. So it's already pretty sturdy already. I'll just make sure that I get it the right way around. I did mark it up. Right, there you go. Glue's dry. Now all it needs is some sanding, just to make the edges a bit smoother. And I've taken the labels off my jars, but they've still got that sticky stuff on. An easy way of getting rid of that is to use a little bit of WD-40. Sometimes I'll just spray it onto the jars, or you can spray it onto an old rag or a cloth and wipe it over the sticky stuff. Make sure you give it a good coating, and the WD-40 will start to break down the adhesive, and then you can clean it off. And then once that's done, I recommend just cleaning them off with a bit of washing up liquid and hot water just to get any of the WD-40 off. And there you go, they'll be nice and clean then. So I'm just going to carry on cleaning the jars. I don't know if you can see, but it is starting to come off. Take the adhesive off. It works quite quickly. And once I've cleaned all the jars up, I'll give them a good clean, like I said, in some hot soapy water, and I'll be done. And once I've sanded the actual holder itself, I'll just go over it with a bit of Danish oil, and that'll help bring out the colour like it has in the other one. Right, so I'm going to get on, finish this off, clean my jars up, and then it's ready for putting some cuttings in. Alright. Right, there we go. All sanded. I'm happy with that. I've cleaned my jars up. They're nice all shiny. They fit well in the rack. It's kind of hard to see it from this angle, but I've got enough above here so that they're easy to grab hold of. Now the last thing I need to do is just bring out the grain of the wood a little bit. I'm just going to use a bit of Danish oil. It's easy enough to use this stuff. Just get a cloth, get some on, and then just wipe it over the wood. You can get Danish oil that's coloured, so it's got like a stain, I guess you could call it, in it. This is just a natural coloured one, a clear one, if you will. And I'm just going to go all over the wood with it. It does darken a little bit as well. And that basically is it. So now I've got a couple of propagation stations, which is a bit of a mouthful. It cost me not really long to make, maybe an hour. You could make them quicker. You don't need a lot of expensive tools to make them. As I said, I've used a hand drill, a couple of drill bits, hand saws and a sander, and that's it. I could have sanded them by hand. It's just quicker with a power sander. There we go. Yeah, it's actually quite a nice piece of wood considering it was an old pallet, or at least it's come from an old pallet. There. Put that away. Here's the other one I made the other day. It's a bit smaller, a bit longer even. Has slightly different sized jars in it, but I think they'll both work quite well. Now all I need to do is, obviously once the oil's dried on this one, is get some plants in there. So, there we go. How to make a propagation station from old herb and spice jars and a bit of pallet. As I said, it's a simple enough construction. You just need to make a rectangular rack, almost like a test tube holder really. So you want two sides, a top and a bottom. The sides, you can use your jars as a measurement, and I've just gone from the base to the neck of the jar on this one and the same on those. That way when you put it in, one, it doesn't fall out when you tip it up, and it also gives you enough to grab it there to take it out. The holes down there, it's just a case of making a centre line down your piece of wood, measuring the distance apart you want them. Obviously you don't want them sort of bunched right up, you want a bit of a gap between them. That one's not quite even, but never mind. And then you just use a Forstner bit to do it. You can use a spade bit or a hole saw, as long as you can get something that's roughly the circumference, the diameter of your jars, and that's it. As I said, I've used dowels to hold these together, which is where the drill bit comes in, and the hand drill. You can use a hand drill or an electric drill, cordless drill. You just need to make sure you get your dowels lined up nicely with the side bits, and then I've just super glued it together. That's it. Couldn't really be simpler. Okay, there we go. So like I said, two sides, top and a bottom, and a forcener bit to make your holes, and a drill bit, and that's about all you need really. You can use different sorts of jars. I thought I might have a go making one with these jars, but it's a lot more work because obviously I've got to cut an oval shaped hole, and we've also got, I noticed in our little jar stash in the kitchen, some square jars which I thought might be interesting. Again, it's more work because you're going to have to make a square hole to put them in, but that would be easy enough to do if you make a round hole with a forcener bit roughly the size of the jar. Then all you've got to do is just take the corners out, make it nice and square. But there we go. Propagation stations cost absolutely nothing apart from a bit of time. The jars we keep because we dry our own herbs, and if we didn't keep them they go in the recycling. The glass can be recycled quite easily. The wood, that's pallet wood, of which I've got a lot amongst other things. You could buy it, but that kind of defeats the object, I think, of recycling the materials. And that's it. So I guess you could easily make one of these in an hour, as long as you've got a piece of pallet wood, which you can find. If you don't have hand tools, it's worth looking on, or power tools, it's worth looking on places like the free cycle sites or freebies on sort of Gumtree and places like that, because more often than not there'll be people giving away things, and you can also request them. Well, there we go. Propagation stations cost nothing but a little bit of time. Now I'm going to go and grow some more plants. Alright, thanks for watching.